Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Daily Footy and Other Sports with yours truly, Taz. And he's back. Sorry, she's back. Shawnita's back.
No. Wrestlers had long hair. It's a cool style. It's
I
nothing
said
wrong.
yesterday, people don't grow hair that fast and that quickly in such a short space of time. I know you may be in isolation, but that's not how isolation works. We're going to start with a bit of sad news, unfortunately, but it is actually someone who's actually very important in their respective sport. And the man is called Tony Lewis. Some of you eagle-eyed viewers might recognize the name. Some of you might not have a clue. But when I explain exactly who this guy was, I think a lot of you are going to remember exactly what he's done. Tony Lewis, as the name suggests, was part of the production of the Duckworth-Lewis and now the Duckworth-Lewis-Stern method used in cricket. And obviously for some of you that aren't sure what that still means, in limited overs cricket, i.e. 50 overs, like Sean, like 50 overs or 20 overs cricket, what happens is if it's not possible to complete the match, but a certain number of overs have been played by both sides, the DLS method is used as a way of actually being able to have a conclusion for the match by using particular formulae and things like that. So, as I was saying to Sean before this call, imagine a team who's got 200 runs from a T20 game, played all 20 overs, but the team coming back after them, after about 15 overs or so, is only on 60 runs. So clearly they're not going to get the remaining runs in the next 5 overs, but it starts raining. Officially, they've not finished the match off, but realistically, they're not going to get that total. So that's why the DLS, one of the reasons DLS was brought in, to sort of give you a conclusion. Should there have been, if there were a minimum number of overs that have been bowled, and he was part of that. And I just wanted to sort of say he's a sad loss because he was actually massively important person. I think it sort of started becoming something that was in motion after the rather controversial 92. Oh God, I don't remember the year. I think it's the 92 World Cup.
When Pakistan won it, right?
Hmm?
When Pakistan won it, when Pakistan Zindabad won the World Cup.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, from your perspective, it's coincidental, but yeah, it was controversial at the same time. So,
they got bribed, just like in '99 against Australia. But I wanted to actually say it's interesting you brought up this particular methodology. It could have actually come into effect if he didn't have Stokes win the World Cup. Was that a possibility? If Stokes didn't step up and cause the miracle and allow England to win the World Cup, when that possibility, that DOS method would have been introduced, no?
They were able, it was one of the prettiest, sunniest days we could have hoped for the World Cup final, to be honest. Certainly by the end of it. The DLS method wasn't really going to be used for that. If you watch the World Cup final, the one thing that was in question is, I didn't think you would, there was a crazy incident literally right at the end of the match where Ben Stokes hit it to the boundary. He was trying to push for a second run, and as he went for the second run, he dove. Now, what happened is, because he dove and the ball was flying back in, it hit his bat and it went straight off to the boundary. Because it wasn't intentional from him, it sort of counted as extra runs. Exactly. That is a rule that was very weird because it counts as overthrows, but it's not really an overthrow because the fielder didn't technically throw it to the boundary. It deflected off his bat. Ben obviously got up straight away and said, I didn't mean that. He didn't want the runs, but it's in the rules. Controversially, though, the umpire miscounted how many should have been given to begin with. So there was a mistake on their part. But no, I don't think the DLS method was a applicable for that, but it is certainly used for limited overs. So yeah, that's why, I mean, someone that's been a massive factor to sort of helping get a result in these games, certainly when they're one-sided but the heavens open, very important guy in cricket for me. Yeah, I know it's hard for you to sort of give quite as much input. It's not really your sport, but yeah,
We're a
that's
sports show.
exactly
We're a sports show, so for everyone
something I did. I had a bit of know-how about. So I guess if you're in a position to sort of exactly, yeah, if you're in a position to sort of chat a bit about these things, then gotta say it, really, don't you?
That's what we're here for. That's
Yeah.
what we're all here about. We love to be creative and not just regurgitate information you can get from online sources. We're here to give our point of view.
What are we doing next? So the next one we've got is a very quick. Well, the next two are going to be very quick, really. Eddie Jones, the England rugby coach, has extended his contract to the 2023 World Cup, which will be in France. I don't have much to say about this. I mean, he's definitely brought positive play to the England setup. There's no question about that. But they didn't turn up in the final. It was really one of the worst performances that they've ever had in their whole lives. And
we were so close to Japan. So close in Japan. It was quite
the final wasn't. I was watching it and it was just dreadful. It was like.
But the route, we were like, it was amazing.
The route was really good, and beating the Kiwis, it was one of the most fantastic performances from us, and from their perspective, it was one of their kind of weaker ones. But they, that's where the Kiwis would be disappointed. They absolutely hammered Wales in the bronze match, but we just didn't turn up in the final. It was just shocking performance.
That's like England. It's the spirit of England. I'm a casual rugby fan. Ever since 2003, if me and Taz were in schools, you can remember the buzz that when England were able to win, everyone wanted to actually participate in the rugby.
But they're consistent. But things I consider them to be a bit more reliable. Their consistency is far higher than the football team, for example. Like, we went through a phase where we kept getting to the quarterfinals of the Football World Cup, but no further. Whereas England won it in 2003 and, to be honest, lost a lot of players through retirements. And in 2007, still made it to the final.
We were so bad, but we were so bad between 2003 and 2007, and then during the World Cup, you
just had some of your really massive players retire. They basically won the pinnacle.
Johnny Wilkinson.
Why do it? Wilkinson was there. He stayed a little bit longer, but the whole point of building a team is you've got a team of players. You don't just have one person, although he is special. But that's the thing, though. So we still made it. When you think about it, 2003 won it, 2007 finalists, 2011 I can't remember. I think
we're like the
2015 when we hosted it. It was pathetic and we lost in the group stages. First time I think a host has ever lost in the groups. It was shocking. And 2019 we 100% should have won that final, but you can only win a final if you turn up and perform. I kept saying that a 70-80% England probably would have got the job done. Not easily, but they would have got the job done. But they weren't at the races. It was dreadful.
It was inconsolable. He was inconsolable. He was really upset.
I actually couldn't. I couldn't really talk for about 24 to 48 hours properly. It was pretty woeful, actually, on my part. But the only reason, one of the things I wanted to say about this is he's had a contract renewal. And do you know who the coach of Australia was in 2003 when we won
it? Could you enlighten me? Because I know this Eddie Jones was South African's former manager.
No. He was, however, the Australian coach in 2003. So he's now led two sides, including his own team, and on home soil in 2003 as well, two final losses. And, you can't help but think he's done some good work, but, is he just going to be a perennial loser in the finals? I don't know. I haven't got too much to add on that one, but...
Are we like Germany in the world, like the equivalent of the football German side, where I just want to, even as you said, 2015 we were quite bad, and then there were 8 favourites of South Africa, there was New Zealand, they were dominant. Everyone wanted South Africa and New Zealand to collide with each other. But everyone was saying Japan was doing really well at the World Cup. It seems like England sometimes, like Germany, probably has off spells between big tournaments, but it's just like big time players when it comes to the events, and they just step up. But at least Eddie Lewis, it does help us win the Rugby Nations. Eddie Jones. Well, I'm a casual. We won the Rugby Nations, right?
The Six Nations. Well, it's not over yet, is it? We're actually top of the table at the moment. Yeah. Last year we didn't know. We won after the World Cup. We won the Grand Slam, and then the following year we kind of slightly blew it. We still won the title, but we blew the final match just to prevent ourselves from getting back-to-back Grand Slams. So that's, if you want to pick things out, that's a kind of, if you're dominating, don't blow it like that. So that's why I've got a bit of hesitation about him taking the reins again. One final loss is one thing, but two, yeah.
At least he got to the final. I always got a different outlook, like a Middlesbrough fan in the UEFA Cup. At least we got to the final. At least this guy is getting England to the final against all odds.
Yeah, but I mean, generally speaking, because of the productivity of the, the type of quality that we can produce over here. Generally speaking, your best teams are usually going to be England, Australia, South Africa, and New Zealand. And sometimes you get
France. France. I remember they had that bearded guy.
But this is the thing about France. Their quality is incredible. They've got so much flair, but they are so inconsistent and so erratic. You just can't trust them. You don't know what France you're going to get.
And Wales won. Didn't Wales win the league, the Rugby Nations last season?
Six Nations. I think they won it. Did they win it last year? Yeah, they did win it last year. Yeah. But well done. But that's the thing, though. So I
my phone's off. I didn't actually Google that.
Lucky guess. Yeah, but I mean, you ruined your guess by keep calling it the Rugby Nations. But yeah, that's just literally a quick update we wanted to give you, and add a brief opinion about my hesitation about him continuing as coach. But we're about opinions. And then again, briefly, another topic we've got is so I'm sure a lot of you are aware that the Women's Euros were initially moved to 2021, but because the Olympics have been moved to 2021, and England, by getting to the semi-finals of the World Cup last year in football, have therefore qualified an England team for, maybe actually, is it actually going to be an England team? Probably would be a Great Britain team. Qualified a team for the Olympics, so they don't really want to have back-to-back tournaments. And consequently, the Women's Euros have been moved to 2022. Pretty self-explanatory. You don't want to be doubling up like that, do you? I mean, although I expect Mo Salah might have to do that next summer.
It's like the Harry Kane debate we were having beforehand. At the end of the day, we're talking about so many commitments that these players have to have, and we're at a delicate stage where the Women's Super League and other forms of women's football throughout Europe and throughout the world is growing. And if you hinder their performances by clogging so many tournaments, it could not only affect them, their performances, affects their health, and it probably will hinder the product and prevent it from growing further, which is what we ultimately need.
Absolutely, yeah. Plus, you don't really want to be doing two massive competitions one after the other.
Exactly.
Because unlike the men's game, the women's sides are actually allowed to have, basically it's just the women's teams who can play at these World Cups. It's not an age group thing, whereas in the men's side, it's was it under 23s plus three overs.
Yeah.
So it's an even bigger thing for them. But yeah, I think we move on to next. I think it's one of yours.
Fixture clashes. So as we're talking about a whole set of fixtures that could be clashing with each other, so we're talking about, we've spoken about the Premiership perhaps contemplating about freezing the season. One league, a major league across Europe, has actually, as of Thursday, they have actually announced that they have frozen the Belgian Jupiter League, in which, although they're far ahead of other sides in terms of how many fixtures were left, they have awarded Club Brugge as the champions and have decided to freeze the season, so no more games will be played, although they are having an emergency meeting to discuss whether there be a automatic promotion or a playoffs between the promoted sides, possible promoted sides, relegated sides, and to see who could also make the remaining qualification groups for Europe. So that includes teams like Genk. I don't think Anderlecht did really well. It could be a blessing in disguise for Anderlecht because they've made a heavy investment in company, and players like Samir Nasri has just not turned up. So
yeah,
it's
I don't want you to elaborate too much on that. Based purely on our next topic, which is going to sort of collide both with what you're talking about, or you're over there, what you're talking about, as well as an old topic that we've been discussing. In fact, it was one of the first topics we discussed. So for any of you that have been looking on BBC Sport, you would have maybe seen that the Newcastle Falcons, rugby union side, who were topped by an absolute country mile. I feel like it was 15 to 20 points ahead or something, with games to go, but still a country mile ahead, have been officially confirmed as being promoted to the Premiership.
15 games unbeaten. That is a staggering statistic, just like Liverpool in a way.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, you've ruined it now. Not yet.
Oh,
yeah. But obviously, because of what Saracens have done with their salary breaches, they've therefore been relegated as punishment. But yes, as Sean sort of alluded to, it does also tie in with what's been going on in England in the Premier League, because of course there aren't any sort of salary breaches or anything like that as such, but you still got the same sort of situation where leagues are not officially won. They can technically still be caught, because it's very easy to forget that you can gain 4 or 5 points for a win. If they're 20 points ahead, that's 5 wins away. They could technically lose the remaining games and not go up, at least not in top spot. And that just kind of ties back in with, firstly, what's happened in Belgium, the fact that they've, I don't want to say gifted, but they have given the title to the team in top spot and ended proceedings. But in the Premiership, I just don't think they'll do it. I don't know how many people agree to what happened in Belgium, but there's going to be uproar if they did it in England, because of the teams that are affected behind. And I don't think there's going to be much disagreement about Liverpool deserving the title. We can't disagree with that, because they've smashed it. But there's going to be an awful lot of disagreement about what's been going on behind them. City are probably going to stay second. Leicester might be caught. I don't think they will, because I think they're actually going to find a bit of form and resurgence if the season comes up, starts again. But they can technically be caught. Chelsea are, there to be attacked by United, and Sheffield United, if they caught their game up and won, officially they'd be ahead of United of the Man U.
Again, one side. You're forgetting one side. You're forgetting one side that's related to one of our previous videos. The side that's actually ahead of you guys on Sheffield United, that are apparently part of the whole Man City conspiracy for the Caterpillar to not be successful. Arsenal, they could be another side that can suddenly step up and have
Yeah.
players just working well.
Well, then, I mean, the only thing they're going to do is just complain about this, because from their perspective, they're not performing that great. And if the whole season was null and voided, they'd get fifth spot again. And if City's ban is upheld, they'll be in the Champions League. And, Wolves play better than them. Sheffield United definitely have. Man U have. Chelsea have. Leicester have. And they're above.
The league doesn't lie. The league don't lie, though. The league don't lie.
Well, it is to an extent, because Sheffield United haven't played their game in hand, and I actually believe they're on. They've been outperforming, and they deserve to be as high as they are. It's only because
Sheffield United, yeah. Sheffield United versus Arsenal actually defines it. I think that's one of the games that was the end of Unai Emery in the first place. Sheffield United destroyed Arsenal, showing the work ethic that Arsenal had.
It was a 1-0 win, but it was a really, really good team performance. I still remember it, a Monday night game, pouring rain, and they, I told you about their battling qualities and how they play as a team, and that's exactly what it was. They worked so hard together as a team. They got that goal, and then they just defended and defended and defended. It's not necessarily the type of style that you'd necessarily want to see, but you can't have a go at a team that's just come up from the Championship and has far exceeded expectations.
It depends. I'm always will debate on that factor. You did bring up beforehand as well when we spoke about Diego Simeone. People just love to play for him regardless of the quality of the players he has and position they play. Football is not just attacking, otherwise we're turning to an American sports game where the goals will be ridiculously high. There are different arts of the game, there are different ways to play the game, and it's just, if you're missing one cog, you're going to miss, it's going to affect the whole game. So defensive side, when we're even speaking about our top 11, it's so difficult to select our top 2 defenders because there's so many important categories, and Sheffield United have got a working system. And the manager has done a lot to have the team working hard.
Yeah, I mean, some teams will get away with it because they just buy everything under the sun. Man City, Real Madrid. They're not, though, are they? No.
They try to.
I mean,
you spend more money than Liverpool.
No, I said trying to buy everyone under the sun. I mean, getting ripped off is a completely different scenario.
But you've actually have spent more money than Liverpool.
Yeah, but that shows that you know exactly why that's the case, because everybody rips United off.
But you're still trying to, though.
No, I said buy everyone under the sun. I didn't say buy everyone. Spend loads on people. If you look at if you want to slag them off, then all right. Look at the striker that we've got, homegrown, academy. Look at the guy that's forced himself into the left back position, homegrown, academy. Look at the guy who's a striker and been playing on the wing.
Bad management has led to that, because you got rid of a player that you spent 90 million. It wasn't actually 75, because it included a Rooney deal as well. Some people speculated 50 million plus 75 million spent on Lukaku, who then was sold for a lot less. Just like Di Maria was sold for a lot less.
Yeah, but I'm not defending old managers because their purchases have been stupid. It's as simple as that. I find it easy to defend what's going on right now because they're good buys, they make sense, and they're improving the team. I mean, it's as simple as that. And
I think you just had one good window. Not even Harry Maguire. That's a excessive buy against the.
Look, it's a kind of player that you needed. So and it was done. And there are players who come through the academy. There are players who force themselves from the academy this season. It has still got a lot of, forget the homegrown, it's got a lot of academy-based players. Pereira
you had no
might be
choice.
international, but he's come from the academy.
You've had no choice. You had no choice because of the lack of options, injuries as well.
Or you could argue it's in the DNA and somebody actually understands the DNA is trying to get that back out there.
Of course, you can argue that as well. But then you can say the same thing with Chelsea. Chelsea have started looking into their academy, started using players, but then it comes to some big games.
Lampard was, to be fair, forced into it because of the ban.
Mm.
But then they somehow messed up buying anyone at all in January. But at the same time, he has actually managed one or two of the players in the previous season, like Mason Mount. I think he was at Derby, wasn't he?
Yeah, Derby. Yeah.
And Tomori was also at Derby.
Yeah.
Tammy Abraham, killed it with Villa last year.
Villa.
So he's just relying on a couple of players that he knows a bit about, and that was really handy for him. Having this restriction on transfers. And
I find it interesting about him because he started just before the season was frozen. It was going through a very bad spell, even with the kids, and then he had to then revert back to some experienced players. Most notably Giroud and Pedro, who started actually performing really well. And Giroud's actually now having second thoughts of actually staying at Chelsea. And it just shows that I think Lampard, just like Roy Keane and Carragher had a debate that because Lampard's English, maybe Ole Solskjaer doesn't really get the same leniency. We're talking about two clubs because obviously we focus more on Man United because of your Man United history in the past. But both clubs have got a similar trajectory where they're underperforming, heavily reliant on academy players, and they do need some urgent signings in order to help complement these kids that need some experience to help guide them.
Of course,
the managers are too young.
That was the whole point. You've got, if you're a team who's got a history of bringing youth from your academy through, you still need to have experience in there. It's very easy. Everyone will keep on saying, but class of '92, you had all these guys. Yeah, but you did have all that youth, and it was probably one of the most special bunch of youth players ever. I think maybe.
Roy Keane wasn't a kid. Roy Keane wasn't a kid.
Yeah,
Michael wasn't a kid.
But that's the thing. You're just making my point. You're making my point.
Yeah.
You can't. They didn't just win it with kids. They still had key players. They still had Keane, Berg, Yap Stam. My goodness,
exactly.
These guys weren't from the academy. They were bought, but it was when you look around them. That's where the academy players were. So there was a really good mix. They had Schmeichel. There was a good spine. Schmeichel,
Owen,
Stam,
Owen,
Keane. Yeah, but I mean, just look down the middle. That's what we like to do. Schmeichel, Stam, Keane. For the '99 season, you had Cole, York, Teddy and Solskjaer. In fact, the whole front four strikers were all bought. So, but that doesn't mean to say that the youngsters weren't quality players as well. They were backing it up. So there you go. So I mean, it's important.
I can spot you socially. Can I give you a spot? No.
No.
Leaving me hanging, like.
Yeah, not with that hair. But no, I mean that's basically it. You need a good balance, and the problem has been you've got the prior managers before Ole were not bringing in the youth as well. Like Van Gaal was forced into doing it, but then stopped somewhat. Mourinho just kept buying.
He started Rashford. LVG did bring out Rashford out of nowhere.
Januzaj, a forgotten man for most people. Januzaj, he had a great season.
And Moyes, right?
No, that was Van Gaal, I think.
No, David Moyes. David Moyes, and then he didn't do really well under Van Gaal, and then he just had to get shipped off to Sociedad. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I still think there was something about Januzaj. I'm a bit disappointed it didn't work out for him. Yeah. But
But you know, even
sometimes it
what you're
happens.
talking, yeah.
Hmm?
You know, another topic to discuss in related to all of this is how much of the financial what would be the financial consequences if they are to consider freezing the league. We on Thursday, because you guys are watching this on Friday, Matt Hancock has even addressed the Premiership clubs about the financial power where they need their help in order to help confront this pandemic. So because they've even written off, we've clapped for everyone before, and they've written off the debt for NHS, and this shows the power of the Premiership, or the Belgian league, and in all due respect, the rugby division. It's not the same as the French league, which is seen as the Premiership of the rugby world. So it's not that easy just to say if they're doing it, then so should we.
Yeah, and I have to add, actually, it's really sad that you know, the NHS are constantly being underpaid,
Mm.
and you know, you get so many other people like TFL, goodness me, you know, constantly striking, and then the NHS staff that wants to strike, but they've got lives to save, and they just can't. You can't do it in the same manner,
Mm.
and they are getting a lot of help and support and financial support right now. Why did it have to be a pandemic for it to happen? You know, I mean, they should be getting more what they deserve to begin with. That's a really disappointing part, but it's amazing that everyone is trying to help out and chip in as much as they can as well. It's yeah, they are our heroes, them and the frontline workers at the moment. But yeah,
Not like, yeah, exactly. And they actually are doing the good right thing and promoting isolation. Not even at the Wednesday night wars yesterday, NXT, AEW, Soul Wrestling. It's ridiculous. Good shows, by the way, last night, but still.
I doubt
Keith,
it. But
Keith
but
Lee was
actually, you
wicked.
mentioned the Premier League again, and right before I came on, actually, I read that very unlikely to be restarting. We expected it anyway, but they're very unlikely to be restarting the Premier League after this 30th of April deadline. Look, he's looking now; he hasn't seen himself, and again, that just sort of ties in with the whole, you know, uncertainty over what they're going to do with the rest of the season. Who knows? Who knows?
Even De Bruyne actually has stated today that the next season cannot be sacrificed for this season. So if this season could perhaps impede next season, then he would like the season to be frozen. And it's interesting to have, as you said, now Harry Kane and now another high-profile player, and De Bruyne has also suggested that. So it's quite interesting to see how players are saying these things.
Yeah, you're gonna get a mixture of opinions. You're gonna get some players who are gonna be right down the middle and neutral. You're gonna get some players who are sort of playing for their lives at the moment, stay in the league, and they're gonna be obviously trying to say things to benefit the team. You know, if you're a relegation side, they're not going to be saying we should see out. You know, if Norwich need 12 points from 4 matches, for example, and you know they were pondering stopping the league where it was and restarting again, they're not going to say, oh, but we might be able to get 4 out of 4 wins and we might get out of the relegation zone. I mean, firstly, we wouldn't expect that to happen anyway, but you know, they're not gonna you know have that carrot dangled in front of them and say, "Nah, you're all right. We'll see how we get on."
They need to relax. Be like Chris Jericho last night at AEW, just on the jacuzzi. That's how we need to be. Isolate, still in the stay in the jacuzzi, enjoy ourselves during these tough times.
Yeah, absolutely. Just as long as you're doing it, comforts of your home.
Yeah.
Of course, you're
I don't think he was in his
saving the
home.
world. But yeah, interesting how that one rugby article is tied in with two separate football related topics all in one go. And Sean and I have done relatively well to keep it as short as we have. But yeah, it's a bit of a shorter show, I think. I haven't looked at the time. But Sean and I are going to wrap it up now. no more Sean. I think he's okay at the moment as well.
I
So
really want to talk about Wednesday night wars, but we want to wrap it up.
yeah,
So we'll do that tomorrow.
Well, maybe tomorrow, maybe never, but we'll see. as ever, guys, if you this is the first time you're watching our videos, or even if you've watched our videos but not done so before, please subscribe at the bottom there, and leave your comments below. What are your thoughts on what's been going on? A couple of topics mentioned today. Any queries or concerns or disagreements about what you've heard in the report, or even what we've said, let us know in the comments. Please don't forget to like the video, and if you haven't already clicked on the bell and got all notifications set, then don't forget to do that as well, and of course subscribe.
And tell him that we want the Wednesday night wars spoken next time.
If somebody does ask for it, then I'm sure I can get Sean to do it, but until then,
Velvet Dream was awesome.
No, sure.
Velvet Dream.